If the elites were as powerful as many conspiracy theorists think, then they would not need to go after Alex Jones the way they go after him. They would not need to try to indict Donald Trump or raid his home. The reality is, as the midterm election nears, there's a very real possibility that the establishment political class is removed from power, at least more and more with every passing year. The Republicans might win in November. That's what polling suggests. But still, you've got a lot of uniparty establishment Republicans. But one by one, they're losing their primaries. And today, Liz Cheney may lose her primary election. I don't know what exactly will happen, but the polls are suggesting Liz Cheney will find her way out. Now, right now, we have a story from Bloomberg. It says being thrown off social media was supposed to end Alex Jones's career. It made him even richer. Revelations from his defamation trial show the limits of deplatforming and the greed of Facebook and its peers. Now, Alex Jones has insisted he's bankrupt. He has no money. Alex has commented to me on a similar story that we reported on only a few weeks ago at timcast.rl that these are not true stories. He does not have this money. He is not making as much money as they're claiming, and he is bankrupt. And that may be the case. And I have no problem saying that's what Alex Jones is claiming. I don't know for sure. I have no reason to believe, no evidence that is secretly worth $270 million. I would say, however, I'd be really surprised if Alex did not seek to protect his assets, knowing this lawsuit was coming for some time. We have a story from the New York Post that he signed over some property to his wife. That doesn't mean he's trying to obfuscate his finances, although that's what the left is claiming, but it does show that he did transfer some money to outside parties. The purpose of this segment, well, I don't know for sure how much money Alex Jones has. I can tell you this. One, they don't feel like they're winning. This is them basically panicking. They hear reports that Alex Jones is still making money, and they're saying, how is this possible? It was supposed to end his career. Hey, wait a minute. That's a stunning admission. It wasn't supposed to end his career. It was supposed to stop him from engaging in violent rhetoric. I thought the real issue was that he was engaging in violent rhetoric. No. You see, the reality is Alex Jones, for all of his faults and for the things that he's gotten wrong in the past, he's gotten some big stories right, notably Epstein. And that matters. He was also a major vehicle for supporting Donald Trump. And I think what we're seeing here with this story is that they know they can't win, in the long run at least. So I'm not a fan of the narrative about fraud and cheating. The reality is Trump won in 2016. And 2018, they came after Alex Jones. They came after people like Milo Yiannopoulos, Laura Loomer. Some of the most prominent Trump supporters and loudest voices were completely removed from the internet. And they said, this will do it. And then it didn't. And according to Bloomberg, Alex Jones has got more success than ever. And they're angry about it. Now, maybe it's not true. Maybe Alex is right. He's not got the money. But what we can see here from this story is at the very least, the perception among the elites is that they haven't been able to stop the man. And Alex Jones is a powerful vehicle for, say, Donald Trump or other MAGA Republican types, perhaps Ron DeSantis, maybe not. They're trying everything they can to make sure that they don't lose. But it looks like still they're going to lose. They would love to eliminate all independent media, but they can't do it. Canceling people does not work. Now, I'll stress it again. I don't know how much money Alex Jones has. He says he doesn't. He doesn't have a lot. But this story, if it is true, if Alex is not being truthful, which I kind of don't think this is true, to be completely honest. I think Alex has probably got some money tucked away. But if this is true, it just goes to show their defeat is imminent. The establishment elites, the uniparty political class, their time is coming, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. In another story, we have Tucker Carlson bringing on Alex Berenson. He is going to be suing because the White House sought his suspension from Twitter. That is direct government intervention and a violation of the First Amendment. You can see, if they really had it in the bag and they were guaranteed the win and they had the power that some of these conspiracy theorists think they have, it would not be necessary to so desperately try to silence people. But they're still failing. Alex Berenson is back on Twitter, and now he's going to be suing. So this, my friends, should be a tremendous white pill for all of you. If you believe, and that is important, and you tell each and every one of your friends to go vote, not only will you remove the establishment trash through primaries, you will win in the general elections. Let's read this story and see what they're saying about Alex Jones. They're saying it's only made him stronger. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to support our work, and you'll get access to the Timcast IRL Uncensored After Hours show. Last night's uncensored show was very spicy and very not family friendly. Had to do with dogs and monkeypox. And I'm going to leave it at that to try and keep this show family friendly. But check it out at timcast.com. Directly supporting our work is helping make sure that independent media can continue to fight back and keep growing. And we are. And it's all thanks to you. So again, timcast.com. Click the members only button or the join us button. Sign up. Check out our shows. Smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video if you can. Let's read the first story from Bloomberg. They say, has there ever been anyone more worthy of cancellation than Alex Jones? Are you asking? Because I can say, well, probably no. I don't like the idea of cancellation due to bad opinions. But if you're talking about like the spreading of misinformation, I can start with CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. Oh, the list goes on. How about the New York Times? How about Iraq and the invasion in Afghanistan? And oh boy, the list goes on. How about the covering up of the Holodomor, Pulitzer Prize winning awards? How about all the Russiagate lies? You don't want to try me, Bloomberg, but let's read. Over almost 30 years, the far-right radio host and professional conspiracy theorist built a career, an audience of millions, and an astonishing fortune by spreading lies about acts of mass violence and their victims. No, I mean, that is... Man, you're getting me into this. Alex Jones has talked about everything. This is just, wow, they're really trying to go after Jones. I'll put it this way, too, as I read this. The goal of claiming Alex as wealthy as he is probably because they're desperate to stop him. They need to keep piling on. They say, on public access TV in Austin, it was the Oklahoma City bombing. On radio and mail-order DVDs, he claimed the Bush administration orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. And most notoriously as an internet broadcaster with enormous followings on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Jones upped the ante, focusing his lies on victims of the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary. I am not a fan of these narratives. However, I have something to say to everyone. They say, Tim, aren't you mad about the fake news of Alex Jones? And I'm like, what's the difference between what he says and what any other news outlet is doing? The difference? These mainstream corporate news organizations have zero accountability, and Alex Jones gets run through the coals nonstop, all day, every day. He's never been, he's always been under fire for the things he said. In fact, I have heavily criticized Alex Jones over the past several years. But hey, the man is still willing to come down and have a conversation, and he was right on some of the most important stories. I'll say it again, Epstein. Now, they say, to state the obvious, this cruel, cynical, and gross, blah, 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 blah. Okay, come on. Let's get to the point. They mentioned that he was recently sued, and a jury was awarded $49 million. The total, I believe, was 49.3. Now, that is capped, so Jones is not going to be paying that much. They say Apple, Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube all banned Jones's company, InfoWars, and took down many of its recorded broadcasts in the summer of 2018 after Jones threatened then special counsel Robert Mueller. Each platform gave a slightly different reason, generally citing unspecified content policy violations. And it all happened around the exact same time. Twitter, of course, I think waited a couple weeks. Facebook insisted its ban had nothing to do with Jones's conspiracy theories. The company banned Jones personally the following year. The deplatforming was supposed to relegate Jones to obscurity. The move was denounced by conservatives and treated as a welcome, if overdue, shift by victims' rights advocates and liberals. Media outlets published professional obituaries and suggested that the treatment of Jones provided an example of the tech companies to follow. Jones himself embraced this narrative up through the Lewis trial, claiming that he was being persecuted and that the big tech companies had ruined his business and cut him off from his audience. You're technically still on the internet. Like if you're in a prison, you're still on Earth, he said in court. You don't have a voice anymore. But as the trial revealed, none of this is true. Jones's audience didn't disappear after the deplatforming, and his business was more lucrative than ever. According to testimony from Bernard Pettingill, Jr., a forensic economist who testified on behalf of Neil Heslin, and Scarlett Lewis, Jesse's parents, Jones's companies recorded revenue of $64.9 million last year, up from about $53 million in annual revenue as of 2018. Pettingill based his analysis on InfoWars records and Jones's testimony and estimated his net worth as high as $270 million. Lawyers for Jones disputed the analysis. Alex has personally told me this is not true. He has commented saying it is not true. He is broke. He is bankrupt. Now, I don't trust the corporate press. And Alex has stated, that he doesn't have the money. So I'm going to leave it to you to decide who you think is telling the truth. I'm not saying I think Alex is being completely honest, but I think he may be on the surface honest. Like, yeah, maybe he's broke and he's bankrupt, but I have to imagine Alex put money somewhere. Maybe he put it in a trust for his kids. So he is broke. He can't touch the money if it's an irrevocable trust. His kids will get it when they turn a certain age, but he doesn't have the cash. There is a story from the New York Post about him transferring property to his wife in February, which we'll go through. They want to mention his net worth could be as high as $270 million. But I want to make one point. Alex may have made that money, maybe not. It may have been that Alex had, in his records released in Discovery, he may have generated this in sales, it's revenue, but it's not gross revenue. It's net revenue. Or is it the other way around? I'm sorry, it's not net revenue, it's gross revenue, whichever. You get the point. The point is, if it costs me $60 million to manufacture birdhouses and I sell them and I make a $5 million profit, the reality is that Jones may have made $5 million and generated $65 million. So they can argue to people who don't understand finance that Alex Jones is very, very wealthy. He had revenue of $65 million. And it's like, yeah, but what was his profit margin? Was it really that high? Now, we don't know. It's possible that it wasn't. And if you look at what Jones is claiming, probably not. However, I want to make sure this is pointed out as well. His profit margin may actually be decent on the sales of his, supplements. But then what about staff? What about building costs? What about equipment, electricity, internet, all of that stuff? We don't know. What we do know is they've taken a look at his records and they're freaking out that he's not been destroyed. At the very least, what this looks like to me, one, Alex should not have made claims about private individuals who were victimized. I don't agree with his 9/11 narratives or anything like that. And I've read all about them. Since I was a kid, I've been on the internet. I've read all this stuff. I've watched all the documentaries. I don't agree with unsubstantiated claims from anybody. I don't care who they come from. Now, you can point out inconsistencies, oddities, or stories that don't make sense when it pertains to, Oklahoma City or 9/11 or whatever. But that doesn't prove, inside job theories or anything like that. And it's fair to say, if you believe the official story outright from the U.S. government, well, then I think you're naive. The government is not going to come out and just say, here's how our security was bypassed. They're going to be like, here's as much as we can say. And they're going to call it the official story. And it may be there's a lot of details. It's highly likely that they did not release to the public because they're top secret, classified, etc. Why would the U.S. government come out and be like, hey, everybody, here's the roadmap to how they actually bypassed security and took out 2 of our buildings and killed thousands? So the story may not add up for that reason. I don't know what else to say beyond that. I don't like conspiracy theories. That being said, Alex Jones has been run through the coals by the establishment. What I think we're seeing here with the trial against him and this story is that they cannot defeat him, no matter what they do. No matter what they do. And they go on to say that, blah, blah, blah. He's a demagogue and his fans won't quit. That's right. There is nothing you can do to stop this man. You can sue him into oblivion. You can take all the stuff and the man can get his cell phone and just start talking and he won't go away. So they try as they might. The main point I want to drive home with this story is, regardless of what you think about Alex, about his finances, the reality is they think they're going to lose. They go on to say, fandom for Jones, who, depending on your taste in demagogues, is somewhere between clownish and totally reprehensible, and whose obsessions include the prospect that the Pentagon has been putting chemicals in drinking water to turn the frickin' frogs gay, can be avid. See, this is the amazing thing they do to lie to you. Alex Jones was talking about a report, a chemical called atrazine. I believe it was a pesticide. I could be wrong. In official filings, we saw that it was interfering with endocrine systems of frogs. The speculation beyond that, the conspiracy theory or the hypothesis, is that it would do the same to humans. Now, just because it's doing to frogs doesn't mean it'll happen to humans. And I believe this study was eventually retracted, saying, we're probably wrong about that. But regardless, they try and make it seem like an off-the-cuff statement in jest was some kind of fact-based statement. They say, you have some people who come to him for entertainment, like he's South Park, and you have people who laugh at him. And that's true. And then there are the people who buy everything he says. Well, if you're referencing the turning the frogs thing gay, and we're smart enough to discern what Jones was actually talking about, if you're talking about the chimeras and 5G towers and all that stuff, I'm like, yeah, that stuff's just nuts. But I think, regardless of your opinion, when I look at the mainstream press with a smiling face and a suit lying to us and getting things wrong and refusing to correct, then I just say, what's the difference, man? They call it the lie economy. I covered this in an earlier segment, and I'll talk about it for those listening on the podcast. But I say, is the story real or fake? Can you back it up with sources? And I'll take the story into consideration. I do look at some sources as more credible than others. That's a reality. In the end, Alex Jones is a powerful voice that is helping Donald Trump and Trump supporters. And this whole story and everything they're saying says to me, again, they expect he'll win. They say, on August 11th, just days before the jury's verdict, Free Speech Systems reported to a bankruptcy judge that it experienced a sudden surge of product sales. It now says revenue could reach close to $500,000 a day. Now, I don't know if any of that's true because I don't trust these corporate organizations. But I do think there's something to be said about Alex Jones's wealth. So let me issue a blur here before jumping to this next story. Alex Jones transferred real estate to his wife amid $45 million lawsuit. This is from the New York Post. I think Alex Jones probably has cash. And what I mean by that is I think he probably transferred money out. It's not his anymore, and so he is probably broke. But they're trying to argue that many on the left are saying that these transfers were no good. In a document, they mentioned that he transferred what is said to be around 20% of a property that's valued at a couple $1 million to his wife. They then go on to mention all his properties, and I blurred them because they're actually showing Alex's home, and I think that's just not okay. You'd have to be naive to think Alex didn't transfer wealth out. Now, in the comment section on this article, they're saying it will be nullified. It's a fraudulent transaction. Let me see what the comments are exactly saying, because I think it's funny. They don't understand this. You cannot stop this man. One person said, this is what's known as a fraudulent transfer, which can and will be nullified and reversed. I really doubt it. Maybe because it was to his wife. But I will stress, you cannot stop Alex Jones. There is nothing you can do to stop him. He is Alex Jones. Canceling doesn't work. Banning people doesn't work. I have said it over and over again. You've got Truth Social, Gab, Parler, Getter, Minds.com. Alex Jones made his own video platform with numerous shows, and his clips still get hundreds of thousands of views. That's what he was getting on YouTube. Now, he was getting millions on YouTube across the board because he was producing a lot of content. I don't know what he's getting now on his band.video. But people listen to him because they like his content. A lot of people buy his products. They will keep trying because they have to stop him. Which brings me to where we go from here. From Fox News, Alex Berenson, I plan to sue the White House over Twitter ban. The White House allegedly asked why Berenson wasn't banned from the platform. From Tucker Carlson's show, Alex Berenson said, I plan to sue the White House and probably other individuals too. I told you about at this time that I was going to sue Twitter and have people mock that. This federal judge was appointed by Bill Clinton, a reasonably good case, and that led to my being reinstated on Twitter a few weeks ago, or Twitter reinstating me. They were forced into a settlement. I went to the lighthouse. I think I have proof that they violated my First Amendment rights, forced Twitter to act as a paid actor, essentially an arm of the federal government. And that right there may have opened the door across the board. I have obtained these documents. I will have this in soon. But I think when a party shall is that this, okay, that's typo. What is it? This case will survive a motion to be dismissed, and there will be a discovery deposition. People inside and outside the White House will probably will ask questions, not just about me, but about other people on the platform in the last year or two. Alex Jones, perhaps? I think that's a question that absolutely needs to be asked. I would bet a gentleman's bet We won't make it about money. A gentleman's bet, a wager of nothing but our honor that the White House or elements of the government had been pressuring Twitter to ban Alex Jones and Milo and Laura Loomer and other individuals who are prominent Trump supporters. This is what I think one of the biggest revelations, the story, because now we can see Twitter plan to fight midterm misinformation falls short, voting right experts say. How much do you want to bet that the White House, that Democrats are putting pressure on Twitter to manipulate and censor information about the midterms, and that Twitter is saying, yes, Alex, we need your lawsuit now, not tomorrow. Well, we need it yesterday. We need this to move quickly because we need these depositions before November. I really doubt it'll happen. But to be fair, Alex's lawsuit, I think it took like 6 to 8 months. So we may get a response fairly quickly if he files a lawsuit and the White House does respond. It may happen actually fairly quickly. He'll need to file this ASAP. And I think that's something that needs to happen now because the pressure is on. Special interest groups are demanding Twitter censor more information. And we know that they censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. And the Hunter Biden laptop story was true, verified by several different outlets. Reuters reports. Twitter on Thursday set out a plan to combat the spread of election misinformation that revives previous strategies. But civil and voting rights experts said it would fall short of what is needed to prepare for the upcoming U.S. midterm elections. The social media company said it will apply its civic integrity policy, introduced in 2018, to the November 8th midterms, when numerous U.S. Senate and House of Representatives seats will be up for election. The policy relies on labeling or removing posts with misleading content, focused on messages intended to stop voting or claims intended to undermine public confidence in an election, which is all just subjective. In a statement, Twitter said it has taken numerous steps in recent months to elevate reliable sources about primaries and voting processes. Applying a label to a tweet also means the content is not recommended or distributed to more users. The San Francisco-based company is currently in a legal battle with billionaire Elon Musk over his attempt to walk away from his $44 billion deal to acquire Twitter. Musk has called himself a free speech absolutist and has said Twitter posts should only be removed if there is illegal content, a view supported by many in the tech industry. But civil rights and online misinformation experts have long accused social media and tech platforms of not doing enough to prevent the spread of false content, including the idea that President Biden did not win the 2020 election. I'll put it this way for everybody. Joe Biden won, but it was because people voted against Donald Trump. I think too many Trump supporters, unwilling to see that, or at least steelman their rivals, it's indicative of a defeat. For a while, we saw that Republicans in the generic ballot were leading substantially, up to like 5 points. Now it's neck and neck. And too many Trump supporters and conservatives are like, no, it can't be real. The polls are wrong. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter if you think they're wrong. You have to act as though they are right, period. You need to overwhelm the system with a red wave, a red great flood. Each and every one of you who believes in America and American values needs to get 3, 5, 10 of your friends to go out and vote, regardless of what you think may or will happen, and then you will win. As evidenced by Carrie Lake's victory in the primary, as evidenced by Donald Trump's 2016 victory. They want you demoralized. The machine wants you to think you can't win when you can. I think South Park did a great commentary on the whole 9/11 stuff. The analogy they gave was that the conspiracy theory was actually that the Bush administration was pushing the conspiracy theory to convince everyone their power was absolute, because it's not. This is what I was talking about yesterday. We had Nick Searcy on advocating the idea that there was cheating in the election in 2020. I'm like, well, look, Bill Burr said that there was fraud. Not Bill Burr. Bill Barr. The names are too similar. It's too easy for me to screw up. He said there was fraud, but was there enough to change the election? I think it's the wrong question. I think the main issue is if you truly believe that you can't win, the demoralization will stop you from winning. That's reality. Donald Trump comes out and claims all this fraud stuff, and then what happens in Georgia? His voters didn't turn out. And then the Democrats won. So you know what? Fine, believe whatever you want. I don't think so. I think people hated Trump. I think COVID destroyed all of our entertainment activities. Sports were gone. Movies were shut down. There was nothing to do. Businesses were closing. People all over the country and big cities were locked in their apartments with nothing to do. And then a mail-in ballot landed in their laps. So they filled it out. It's really simple. Now you can talk about 2,000 meals and all that stuff. And I'm like, fine, by all means. But operate, period. Operate under the presumption you can win if you rally everyone. You get all your friends. I'm telling you guys, the reason why they're going after Alex Jones is because he's effective. The reason why they're going after Alex Jones is because they're scared. Even after banning him, his influence persists. The reason why Twitter is implementing a censorship policy is because they're scared they will lose. Let's talk about cheating. Cheating is when big tech platforms suppress the Hunter Biden information. That I get. But in the system of our elections, your vote matters. Every vote matters. So let me stress this point. If they really had it in the bag, they wouldn't be desperately trying to change the rules in their favor. If they really had this great degree of control, they wouldn't need to censor you online. They wouldn't need to ban Alex Jones. They would not need to ban Alex Berenson. They would not need to do it. If it was hopeless, the propaganda would not be necessary. The propaganda proves they're paranoid and they're terrified. They didn't think Trump could win in the first place. And it's funny to me that people think, Nick seriously said the other day, and I think he's a great dude. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But he said they cheated in 2016. I was like, wait, Trump won in 2016. He went, well, they didn't cheat enough. I'm like, come on, man. The evidence indicates that whatever it is happening behind the scenes, it is not all powerful and it is not a guarantee. And that if you go out and you engage in the system, the election system, by bringing all your friends, you'll win. This is what I was saying, a month ago. One of my favorite movies of all time, The Patriot with Mel Gibson. The British, they're like, am I mistaken? Or is that militia forming at their center? All snide and snooty, you Brits. And they mock them. And then the British attack. And then the militia is like, retreat. And they think they won. And then when they run across the hill on the other side is the Continental Army. And they're like, it's a trap. I love it. And then when the line's breaking, Mel Gibson grabs the flag and he's like, no. And he runs the other direction. Keep going. And then they take the field and they win. That's what needs to happen. I watched Kari Lake win in Arizona. And that was a nail biter. After Timcast IRL, I come back, I'm going to bed and I check the numbers and she's down. And I'm like, what? I was like, no way. I don't believe it. She's going to win. She is going to win. And then I woke up and what did I see? She was leading. I wake up and I'm like, oh, there it is. And they still wouldn't call it. And several days later, finally, they were like, yep, she won. Maricopa County, the more liberal area, was leaning in the other direction until all the votes came in. Kari Lake won in Maricopa. She dominated the state. That proves you can win. So fine, if you're attached to those narratives, by all means, believe it. Whatever you want to do. I disagree. I don't think it's relevant. I think all that matters is if you're in a sporting event and you suspect someone of cheating, call them out 100%. Get an investigation. But that also means you have to do everything in your power to win. You are in a contest. You have to do everything to win. I've played Magic the Gathering basically my whole life. It's a fun game. And I've seen people cheat in such hilarious ways. Let me explain one way they do it. It's a card game for those that aren't familiar. You have a deck of cards. You draw cards. You can use the cards to do things to try and defeat your opponent. They used to do this thing where when your opponent it searches through their deck. Let's say something happens in the game that allows you to look in your deck. Normally, you're not allowed to. And then they get a card out of it. The opponent gets to cut their deck, shuffle it to prevent cheating. What would happen is the opponent would purposefully sleight of hand to put a bad card on top. It really is that easy. And people wouldn't catch it. When they started streaming the games, all of a sudden people noticed when the guy shuffled, he slid a card on top. The guy draws a card his next turn, gets a dud card he can't use, and then is at a disadvantage. People cheat. We know they do. We, of course, want to call it out and catch it. But these people still can lose. You still can win. And you need to make sure you, with all your integrity and all your honor, overcome this. So back to the main point. Alex Jones, I think he's deserving of criticism. I don't watch his content. I don't know everything he's ever said. I know the media misrepresented his frogs turn, the gay frogs thing. I think they do that. I think they misrepresent him at every turn. And I also think when I've listened to him on Joe Rogan, he said a bunch of crazy stuff. I also know he's talked about Epstein. He was right about it. And I also know that he is largely influential and he has a First Amendment right to report what he wants to report. He's made mistakes. We'll see what ends up happening with all of this. But the most important takeaway from what we're seeing here is I want to make sure I stress this at the end. They say being thrown off social media was supposed to end his career. Really? I thought they were just concerned about calls for violence and they're trying to prevent violence. No, now they admit it. Now you get it. They're trying to end his career. During the trial, the lawyer said he wanted $150 million or whatever the number was. And he told the jury not just to punish Jones, but to destroy his platform so he can never rebuild it. That's always been the goal. Look, I think the media lies. I don't think we destroy the company and fire all of their staff and ruin everything. I think the companies need to reform and they need incentive to do so. But considering how crooked they are, I wouldn't cry about it if we ended up having to fire everybody because they were all lying. But my point here is, if you can deter a company from lying and they stay on track and they do the right thing and they stop engaging in unfair business practices, then okay, so fine, so be it. But this, to me, it's political. That's the game. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 8 p.m. tonight over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.